Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is the third race of the season and of my career. This is the 2021 Riverton Crit, the historic Riverton Criterium in Riverton, New Jersey. And this is the Cat 3-4 field. And this race was dicey, to say the least. It was a hard course, and it was a lot of uneven pavement, some potholes, and some dips that you'll see throughout this race. And I also didn't have a great warm-up. I didn't really have a warm-up at all, actually. I got here, I had a long drive. The traffic made this drive a little bit longer than I anticipated, so I got here probably 20 minutes before the race started, which barely gave me time to get my number, pin it on, and get dressed. And so I didn't get to roll warm-ups at all. I didn't get to see the course at all before this. So this first lap was me just seeing what the course was like and figuring out what the deal was, what was up with it. So I didn't try to push very hard this first lap, and you'll see that when I was lined up, I was kind of lined up in the back. This field is about 70 or so riders, and a lot of them don't end up finishing. I checked the results sheet after this, and there were a lot of DNFs. Like almost half the field, I think, didn't finish. So yeah, this race was intense. It was really hard, and going into this week with the training before this, I did a decent amount of miles, but not as many as I did before Crystal City. I think my training the week before that was a bit better, and I felt better rested for that one. And I'll admit I was feeling kind of tired going into this one, and mentally I was kind of checked out. I think that I just went up by myself, and I was in the car for almost 3 hours on the way here, and I was feeling rushed, which I always hate. I hate feeling rushed no matter what. And so I didn't get to see the course before it either. So I think all the factors kind of led me to not be mentally prepared for this race, or physically, because honestly my legs were pretty toasted. I used some PR lotion that my girlfriend graciously let me use, and it helped a little bit, but my legs and my lower back were pretty done by the end of this race. So let's get into it. So once again, like my previous videos, I am on Evolution Cycling Lindsay cars, and once again I'm also by myself in this race. So I admittedly didn't do a great job of telling people that I was doing this race on my team, but yeah, I'm by myself, and I will use this opportunity to market Evolution. If you are living in the DMV area and you would like to join a team of really nice people, and if you would want to race like me or not, up to you, the door is open. So evolutioncycling@gmail.com. If you shoot us a note and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, then we could hook you up. So shameless plug for my team. So back to the race though. So like I had mentioned before, this race was tough. Pavement was really uneven, and it's 6 turns. It's really technical. The longest straight is the start-finish straight, and that's where I put the most power down. You'll see my power numbers jump up really high out of these turns, and you'll see my heart rate jump too. And like I mentioned before, there are some serious dips. So that dip that I just hit, marked in the yellow paint, was strong enough to knock my GoPro kind of up and down, even though I like really tightened my GoPro with the mount that I have. So it was pretty taxing on the shoulders and the arms and the hands, which is something that I hadn't really experienced before. But honestly, this race made Crystal City feel smooth, and that was not a smooth race. Yeah, right there. So that guy kind of slips out. So there were a couple parts in that left turn there through the start-finish straight that I actually caught my wheel in a couple of the rivets in there, and it actually almost like pulled me off the bike. And you saw that guy kind of slide out too. So there was a lot of, and like you saw in the very beginning of this video, to keep your interest, I added all of the interesting bits in the very beginning. I mean, there's more interesting stuff coming up, but you'll see. I mean, you saw the people kind of sliding out. There was a crash, and unfortunately my GoPro actually died. This race was an hour long. This race was 25 miles, 32 laps, and about an hour long. And my GoPro was at like 97% when I started, And if you are familiar with GoPros and how long their battery lasts, it's like right about an hour. So the battery died with literally 2 laps to go. So unfortunately, you do not get to see the end of this video, and you don't get to see another crash that happened right next to me on the second to last lap. So sorry to spoil that, but here's my analysis of the rest of the race. I also got 13th, so another spoiler alert. You're not going to see that in this video, but I ended up 13th in a bunch sprint, or kind of in a field sprint, more or less. And there was a guy who was riding off the front for like half of this race, which was really impressive. He ended up winning. Somebody on Kelly. Oh, so the guy on Kelly, I forget his name. The guy on Kelly who won my race at Crystal City got second. So hats off to him, whoever you are. I forget his name. I looked it up earlier, but it's slipping my mind now. And yeah, so there weren't a whole lot of other DC teams here, honestly. So this race is actually pretty close to Pickle Juice. So a lot of the teams that, if you saw the Pickle Juice race on my channel, you'll recognize some of these kits. You'll recognize, I think this guy Venti, I think that team was there. This guy up here on the Cinelli, that team, the Power Bar Cinelli team, they were there. There's the Major Taylor team, this guy in front of the Cinelli guy, they were there. And a couple others. But other than myself and Kelly, and I think I saw 1 or 2 DC Velo guys, that was about it for the DC teams. Oh, and Whole Wheel Velo Club. They're also in red kits, I think they said at DC. But that was about it. And honestly, I didn't have much of a strategy going into this race. Again, since I'm by myself, it's pretty much my only option is to, yeah, I almost got hit by that. So he hit like a bump on the start finish straight and kind of almost like came right into me, and the GoPro only shows part of it, but he was right next to me. Like I think we touched even. I think we touched shoulders. But anyway, so my strategy in this race was to just surf wheels and save energy. But like I mentioned before, again, mentally I was not really prepared physically or mentally. I actually didn't know how long the race was. I didn't know until we were at the start line and the announcer said that it's an hour long, 32 laps, and I kind of got psyched out a little bit by that. And I just kind of had a bad mentality for at least the first half of this race. I figured like, oh, like I'm feeling crappy. This pack is really fast. I'm gonna get pulled. But I stuck in there. I figured like, all right. I mean, unless I crash, like I'm gonna finish the damn thing. You know, if I don't get pulled and if I don't crash, like I'm just gonna keep going until it's over. So this part here, check this out. That guy had a really nice save. That was that was dicey. But that was a really good save. Yeah, that turn was pretty fast. But this part here kind of sucked because you see all those square patches or bumps, and it kind of forces you to really grip your handlebars tightly coming into this turn. And so you're already kind of tensed up, and then you come into this turn, and now you have to lay power down. So you're like tense, and you're exerting energy, which, at least for me, made me really tired. So without fail, every time, by the time I hit this sweeping left turn, I felt exhausted. Like I was like I'm letting gaps open here, and fortunately, like this part back here was more or less a chiller spot. But honestly, like this race was go 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 the entire time. There was almost no chance of like resting at all. And I also like didn't drink as much water as I wanted to. I realized like 3/4 of the way through this race that I barely had anything because I was just so focused on nailing these turns and not crashing. So I used the start finish straight to drink water. That was pretty much the only time. So that was sketchy. I mean, as a photographer, an avid photographer, I get it. You want to be close, but that was, I mean, I think this Major Taylor guy literally touched that dude, which is like dangerous because if you're the photographer, like, okay, you might get hit and it'll hurt, but if you're a rider, like, that could take out you and everyone behind you. So I like to get close, but I would never get that close. That's pretty dicey. So yeah, this turn here was probably the one I worried about the most. Because you come out of the turn, and there are also like holes in the pavement too that you can hit. and like that right there, that darker pavement patch I just passed. And I also didn't get behind wheels as much as I should have in the start-finish straight. Like, another thing, like, I was kind of out of it this first half of the race. I was just so in panic mode that I didn't really have a strategy. I wasn't able to really compose myself. And then I realized halfway through, I'm like, wait, why am I eating wind off to the side by myself and burning energy when I can be behind somebody and save it? So the first half of this race was definitely not great racing on my part, but it's practice. Hey, I mean, you know, you only get better by doing it. So that Kelly guy right there, that's actually the guy, that's the same guy who won the Crystal City Cup. So it's dicey. This turn, so that dip that I just hit right there, almost every time I hit that, it skipped gears in my cog. So I would come out of that turn and try to put power down, and it would just clank. Like, there was a loud clank of my gears being in the wrong sprocket. That gets dicey. This part right here is pretty tight. Yeah. This part here was actually, so this was the second longest straight, or I guess the third longest. But this was actually a good spot for me to use to gain positions. I was able to accelerate pretty decently in this. And despite the fact that this turn here, this left turn, was pretty fast, and that guy in front of me slid earlier, I actually felt decently confident. It was honestly just all the bumps that made me feel a little less confident, especially coming into the start-finish straight. So we're gaining speed coming into this turn, and then you hit all these bumps, and then there are rivets on the inside that if you hit them a certain way, you could catch your wheel in them. So it was just kind of dicey all around. But it was very chaotic. It was a lot of moving around, and like I said before, there was not a lot of rest. It was pretty much the hammer down the entire time. It was, if you watch this, as you watch this, you'll see that it was single file for most of this race. Like, it's pretty fast. And I actually cut a lot of this race out for the video because there were a lot of laps in this race, and a good many of them were not boring, but not really eventful, honestly. Just kind of riding like this, taking the turns, and the usual riding. I mean, the whole race is an hour long. I'm not going to post an hour recap video for the sake of interest. So, this is, So, these Major Taylor guys, so actually, if you remember my Pickle Juice video, the Major Taylor guy on the blue bike on the left, he was the guy who dove on the inside of that downhill left-hand turn really fast. So these guys are confident in turns, which I applaud. However, they were diving through the group without announcing anything. And I'm the kind of rider who, if you listen to the background audio of the race, you'll hear me call out pretty much every turn, just for the sake of people being aware of where I am and not crashing, which might be a little overkill because I'm like the only one who does it. But the Major Taylor guys would just like dive bomb through the group and not announce it, and it was sketchy. And they weren't the only ones, though. I mean, I'm not going to single them out. I mean, there were a lot of other riders in this race who did the same thing, who just dove in and didn't really call anything out. And it caught me off guard for sure. After this race, I was honestly amazed I didn't crash. Like, Crystal City was one thing. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to be in front of the crashes, but this race, I mean, as the race went on, I felt more and more like I was going to crash. And I got more and more tired throughout the race, which also tends to lead to crashes because you get a little sloppier in your handling. So within the last couple of laps, all I wanted to do was just stay up. And I knew that my results weren't going to be anything phenomenal. The leader's already gone off the front at this point. He's put almost a minute into us at this point. The announcer was calling out the time gap. That's where I bumped shoulders a little bit. The announcer was announcing the time gap every lap, and he was gaining on us throughout the race. So at this point, I mean, this whole group here is a race for second. And like Crystal City, I was just proud of myself for staying with this group. And especially as I find out later, since half the field, see, that's what I meant by dive bombing. The guy just dive bombs in there. But I looked at the results sheet, and I found out that like half the field didn't finish. So I was happy to at least finish. Well, definitely not crash. I mean, this race more than any, I was so happy I didn't crash. Number one, just because I don't want to get hurt. Number two, I don't want to hurt the bike. And number three, which is also the most important, is For those who support me with my family and my girlfriend and my friends, none of them are here. So I'm solely by myself, no teammates, no friends, no girlfriend, and they're worried about me. I mean, rightfully so. I mean, my girlfriend, I called her right after, and she was thankful that I was just alive. So I really just didn't want to crash. Oh, yeah, that guy too, dove in there. I really didn't want to crash, just to not have to worry about like being hurt 3 hours away, and if I broke an arm or a leg or something, like having to go to the hospital, like how would I drive back? Like all of that went through my mind the couple of days leading up to this race and during this race. Yep, there you go. Big crash. Took out, I think, 5 or 6 riders. And at this point, obviously now it's strung out. And the guys in front are smart enough, with everyone else here, they're smart enough to know that now is the time to sprint and go. Because now, this race pays out the top 10 places. So now you've just knocked out 5 or 6 guys from contention, which means that this group here is even more likely to get money. So I was kind of just set on a pretty mediocre, or not mediocre, but like, kind of just okay finish. And then that crash happened, and first of all, I hope everyone's all right. I saw a couple of the guys afterwards getting attended to in the medical tent area, and they looked okay. They just had like some bandages and things. So number one, I hope everybody's all right. Number two, I hope their bikes are okay. But number three, I mean, selfishly, I thought, okay, great. I can use this to maybe get some spots and maybe win some money. So right now I'm just hanging out with this group, and I forget. So there are 2 riders up the road in front of us who were in front of the crash, and you can kind of see them like way up there. They're about to take the turn. Yeah, they just go right there. And then there's this group, and the video is about to end. So what you don't see is another group of riders that come up around me, and I end up getting 13th, so just out of the money, but it was still a good race, and I didn't crash. So I want to thank you guys again for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of these. Thank you to my girlfriend, Nayrav, for being worried about me, and I'll catch you guys at the next one.